Use their natural greed. Greed is a human trait, and maybe we'd like to ignore it because it's not very pretty, but it is a fact of life. People do get greedy, and when they do, they tend to lose all sense of reason. That's actually a pretty good time to use this human weakness to help you trigger the impulse to buy your products. In sales, greed isn't just about charging people the most money you can get out of them, although that is definitely one aspect that marketers use. It's also about providing the trigger so that your buyer believes they are getting a steal, either because of a price differential or the cost versus benefits preview. It's a great way not to just make one sale, but to close on a variety of items. Close out and bargain hunting are a form of greed even though it's viewed as frugality. It all depends on if the buyer is buying bargains because that's what they practically need in their lives, or whether the impulse to buy is spurred more by overactive greed glands that can't turn down anything resembling a steal of a deal. So placing these types of deals on your website can help you start to develop a sales strategy that attracts a wide range of buyers. The technique. It may surprise you to know that the disposable income level of your sales prospects actually define what a good deal is, not the actual value of the product or service you are offering. That's because greed is relative to your economic prosperity, even though high-income wage earners are not immune to greed. It just takes a slightly different form. For instance, when you are trying to sell an item that might be worth $60 to a very well-heeled client, you might want to up the price to $100 and highlight the features and quality of the product and see if they bite. The reason for this isn't just your own greed, but also the understanding that price to value is relative based on your disposable income. For someone making over $100,000 a year, an extra $40 is not seen as a lot of money, and they may be used to paying higher prices due to the markets they shop. They might not even question the price. However, they will assuredly question the quality and want to make sure that the purchase reflects their station in life. The greed here is more about status than money. On the other hand, if you were to do the same with a person making less than $25,000 a year, that $100 set point may be enough for them to do some comparison shopping, and they'll pretty soon find out that they can buy the same item from your competitor for $40 less. You not only lose the sale, but you lose future sales too from that customer. So using greed to price your products is tricky. You have to understand your target demographic and specifically the income level of most of your customers. Then you can price accordingly. If you are not sure of the income level, you can always start using this strategy by offering a more expensive option first, and then presenting a much less expensive option second. The difference in prices and a clear explanation of the difference in features can be enough to make the greed glands in any demographic start to salivate. It appeals to the high-income earners because it triggers their status greed in elevating the higher-priced item as the must-have product, not just because of additional features, but precisely because it is more expensive. It triggers the low-end crowd because the less expensive option will seem to be a minor sacrifice in features for a large reduction in cost. The secret. Where does greed come from? It's said it is one of the original 7 deadly sins, but it's probably more a survival instinct. When human beings lived at the mercy of the elements and environment, there were wide disparities between times of prosperity and harsh times when drought, famine, or disease might invade the security of the home. So the instinct to hoard things and try to get a bigger share than someone else was basically an innate fear of survival because the future was so uncertain. That's why even people who are very well off are not immune to greed. It is inbred in our species and helped us as a species to survive very bad times, albeit at the expense of others at times. But the instinct to try to get a very good deal, even one you don't need immediately, is something that appeals to everyone, even if the tactic to implement it is different according to your demographic. In marketing, the skillful manipulation of price is what triggers this dynamic. Value is something that the buyer determines in a capitalistic system, so that it can fluctuate from person to person. So the way to engage a perception that your product is a steal is by manipulating the price in relation to the perceived value. Let's be clear, the price itself is viewed as a fixed commodity to the buyer. It is the value that is fluctuating from person to person. If the price is low when compared to the perceived value, even if the price is actually quantitatively high, then it is considered a steal by that potential buyer and the greed glands will kick into high gear. So you can either raise or lower the price to stimulate greed. It's that simple. That's the tool you have at your disposal. However, always do it in comparison to your understanding of the customer's perceived value of the product. How to make it work. You may be scratching your head a bit confused about raising a price to stimulate greed. There is a strategy that you can use which shifts the perceived value in the buyer's mind while you do it. It is quite a bit more subtle than lowering the price to stimulate greed, but it can be done, especially for luxury or high-priced markets. Remember that as long as the price is low in comparison to the perceived value, even if it is quantitatively a high-dollar value, it's still considered a steal. Here is how you might try to implement the greed factor in a high-priced market. Say you are selling collectible fine china. You have several sets that are obviously worth hundreds of dollars and you are interested in getting a stampede of buyers to your door to generate interest in the product. So you build a marketing campaign and you talk about how the value of the price of this fine china has increased over time substantially and how rare it is becoming. Now you're attracting the demographics of luxury buyers who are interested in not only quality goods, but they have a nose for great deals too. So you say that in another 5 years, their investment in the fine china may be worth twice as much again. Be careful with the wording and be sure that they understand that past performance of an investment is no guarantee of future returns. So here we are very skillfully changing the perception of this product from china to collectibles and an investment, not a household purchase. And we've even shown how the value might potentially increase after the purchase. So are we going to sell it for the actual value of the product? No way. We are selling an appreciating asset, not a household item. So now the value of the product has increased tremendously in the buyer's mind and we can command a higher figure than the actual present-day value. But wait, that's just the start of our greed-enhancing program. Now you say that while it's true that china is a great investment and of quality and high value, you can offer the public a great deal by offering it a discount because you are either going out of business, having an end-of-year sale, celebrating your business anniversary, or whatever. Make up an excuse and make it somewhat believable. Then cut the price of the set from the higher price to a lower one, but one still substantially higher than what the product's present-day value is worth. Another way to do this is not to cut the value of one set, but offer a discount on volume buying. This would work perfectly if you are selling place settings and you don't know whether they want 4, 8, or 12 place settings. However, they may think it's too expensive to buy 12 until you offer them a discount for buying 8 or more. You trigger the greed and they will start to justify the reasons why having extra sets on hand are a good idea. Finally, lowering the price of items is always a surefire way to attract greedy customers by the boatload. And you will soon discover that the amount of attention and enthusiasm you get for sales is completely proportional to the difference in price drops. The lower the price, the more you sell, in other words. The only time when you can't make those sales is when the product is obviously junk and no one wants to buy it. But for the most part, if you continue to persuade your customers of the innate value of the product and lower the price, you can spur them into action to close the sale. This is a strategy that can be used even before a customer shows up to your website. Yes, that's right. You don't have to wait for them to show interest in your products. You don't have to wait for them to sign up to mailing lists. You can do it as a mass advertising tool to bring customers in who will be attracted by your specials. This is an excellent tool for people in direct mail and retail sales. You know that when you put out a special in one of those newspaper inserts or value pack envelopes, that you are practically guaranteed new customers as long as the offer is enticing enough to convince them to drop by. Well, on the internet, you don't even have to convince them to gas up their cars and make the trip. You can simply put your link out there and invite them to click on it. You'll want to include your offer in various third-party forums and comment on it discreetly wherever you can. Be careful not to spam people, but you do want to advertise it on other places besides your own site. In order to get the widest exposure, you can offer to give key people in the same niche as you the deal for free if they review it and write about the value. While that may be a sweet enough deal for some, others will want to get a commission off each product they promote and sell. Then you can also set up an affiliate program for that special so that you are not only able to promote a great deal to their visitors, but they make money off the deal too. That's the true meaning of greed, when you butter the palms of everyone involved in the deal and make it a win-win-win for everyone. These types of offers are best as either introductory offers or closeout sales or end-of-season sales. There should be a reason why you are able to offer these offers so that people don't become habituated to receive only sharp discounts from you and get offended when you put up a product at a regular price. And don't forget the luxury market too when you want to implement this strategy. But instead of money, opt to hype the perceived value so that a lowering of the price still keeps the initial price high. Mesmerize with story. If you've ever heard the story of 1001 Arabian Nights, you know the power of stories to enchant the listener. That's because people are hardwired to myth for ancient times. They want to hear things spoken in story form, and their subconscious has a way of remembering what they hear in story form better than visual cues. If you use stories in your marketing, you will not only capture people's attention, but you will also help them to remember you long after they've left your website. The other aspect of stories that enchants people is the capacity to create empathy and communion with the storyteller. How many of us remember asking our parents to read a bedtime story? Wasn't it a special time of bonding for us? The same can be true of stories that you tell when you are trying to establish a rapport with people coming to your website. The technique. The strategy is to try to capture a person's attention by initiating a story that fascinates them into a longer relationship with you. Obviously, they will not leave until they've heard the punchline or found out how the story ended. The story should have some human elements in it so that your reader can relate to it on a personal level. If it is just a story of a product without some human element, it will sound like hype, so be careful to include your product or service in the story, but don't make it a story solely about that product. The story should try to stir the reader's curiosity from the get-go. It is this sense of what's going to happen that will lead the reader deeper and deeper into your story. It can be a story about some people's experience with your product. It can be a story about the development or discovery of your product. It can even be a humorous story about your product. It really doesn't matter as long as you are engaging the reader in a deeper relationship and connection with your product or service. The way you know if the strategy is working is if you can get the reader to read the entire story to the very end where the sales pitch is. Once they have become so involved in the storyline, they will empathize with the actors in the story, identify with the product and their own predicaments, and be very likely to consider buying the product right then and there. That's the power of a good story. It breaks down the resistance to buying, much like a set of benefits does too. But in this case, it works more subconsciously than consciously, which makes it a far more powerful strategy in the long run. They may leave your website and 3 hours later still remember that story, and thus they will also remember your product better. The deeper the impact of a story, the more likely the reader will remember your products when they have a need or are looking for a solution like your story relates. The secret. Storytelling involves telling jokes as well as long drawn-out stories with a beginning, middle, and end. They work to lessen the awkwardness of a social encounter, especially between people who have never met before. If you can get a person to laugh at your joke or identify with your story, you become more familiar to them and less of a stranger. The impact of a story is only as good as how well it causes the reader to bond with the storyteller and be drawn into the final conclusion of the story. Jokes are very easy to reel off at the beginning of a sales encounter, but they are much more difficult to enact well. It takes a certain flair to be able to tell a joke well so that it comes out humorous and not lame. However, jokes are brilliant ways to tell a tiny story in a very small amount of time and have people bond with you through the mechanism of humor and laughter. It builds a warm camaraderie and can help you establish mutual trust from the onset. However, if you're not good at telling jokes, telling a personal account or story can be another great way to bond with your website visitors. It brings the human element to the forefront of your website and humanizes the technological aspects of being online. It appeals to the subconscious triggers within a person and can be a subtle way to manipulate the unconscious desires or fears they may be experiencing to help them make the decision to buy. How to make it work. Online stories can involve all sorts of media from written copy to cartoons or video blogs. If you have a good short story that can be made into a video, you can add that to YouTube and try to make it go viral. It can be a story that relates your product as the solution to an embarrassing event with the title, "Don't Let This Happen to You." At the end, you put a link to your website to draw that traffic to your sales page. That's the way to use a video and the power of the internet to create a sales page storyline. It can be very powerful if plenty of people relate to it or find it humorous, as it can be spread across the internet very quickly if it has mass appeal. Another way to use a story is through written copy on your website. Maybe the story has a lesson to teach about why your product is the solution to a particular dilemma. Maybe you want to relate a humorous story about your product that is entertaining for the reader. Maybe you want to give the reader the opportunity to experience an aha moment that some other customer had when they used your product or service. It really doesn't matter what you write, as long as it stirs the reader's curiosity, draws the reader in, and creates a lasting impression. Then, by the time you make your sales pitch at the end, the story has been embedded in their subconscious and will have triggered various impulses to buy. Cartoons or images are like mini-stories that can convey a quick synopsis or be a good lead-in for a story. If the image captures a visitor's attention enough, they will probably scroll down and read the story behind it. So don't think that this is all about copy. Use everything you can to draw a visitor into the copy that eventually has your sales pitch at the end and a call to action to buy your product. There is one other way to implement this strategy that does not involve actually selling the product. Instead, it could be a story that creates the right environment for your product or educates the reader for why your products are necessary or expedient. This is particularly effective for items that may be so novel that people don't know why they would buy them. There is no conditioning in place or market buzz that has been associated with the item, and so they're not left understanding the value of the product at all. That's when you need a story about your particular industry and how these products were developed to fulfill a particular need. You want to be clear that people understand the results they will get in their lives by paying attention to this particular issue, and this sets the environment for making a sales call at the end. Computers are a good example. When personal computers hit the scene and started gaining some popularity in the late 80s, people were extremely divided about them. Most people didn't realize the capabilities of computers and the modern microprocessors, so they couldn't justify spending thousands of dollars on one. Why would you pay that much more for something that you don't understand or value? It took a while before people realized that computers could vastly improve their lives. Repetitive menial tasks could be assigned to a computer and save thousands of hours of work. Computers could be connected to each other via the internet, and people could communicate with text and images thousands of miles away. Manuscripts could be typed in full without a single drop of ink wasted and then later edited without hassle. The list goes on forever. Once you declare the proper environment and frame the value of your product or service, it becomes much more intriguing and interesting to your potential buyer. So what might not have been something they saw any value in becomes very important to try so that they too can see the results in their life. So while a story is typically something that can relate the potential buyer to a common experience that will help them bond, there are other times when you have to set the stage first before they get why it is a common experience. It may be they have never tried anything organic in their lives, so you had to introduce that concept to them from some other area that is familiar to them, our polluted environment. Telling a story that is brief can be done at the very beginning of a sales encounter. It can be done on the home page, in your About Me pages, or when you are introducing a new product. Once you've established a nice bond, you can even get into longer stories on the sales page to establish the benefits of your product, especially if it is something new that needs to have the stage set for it to make a dramatic appearance. You can even use a joke of the day type of device to help engage your readers and have it introduce your industry, if not your product. Sort of like the jokes that all relate to the supposed idiosyncrasies of blonde individuals. If you happen to be selling hair dye, this would make an excellent way to establish rapport and humor on your site and eventually sell the dye. Some people like stories so much that they will email them to other people. You can have an email this story to your friend feature that is a great way to have people visiting your market for you. In the same way, a YouTube video that goes viral will work marketing magic for you, and you don't have to go and post it to too many places. Other people will start doing it for you. Most stories will do nothing more than introduce the product or establish rapport. Those are the ones you use on other sites and throughout the internet to establish a presence online. Reserve the longer, deeper stories for your website where people can become involved in an area that has calls to action to buy your products. Involvement invigorates. People who get involved tend to be more committed to a particular path than those who are just visiting. This is true whether you are doing retail sales or online sales. However, in a face-to-face presentation, people are naturally involved because a social interaction is taking place and they usually give you their full attention. Online, people may be surfing the web and be multitasking on their PCs. You don't know if you have their attention or not, since you're not directly there to give them eye contact. So, how do you get them involved in your site if you can't reach out through their terminal and put the product in their hands? Well, the solution is a lot easier than you think, since social networking sites are now more predominant. Blogs, discussion groups, forums, and even surveys and games can be a way to engage the person to stop a moment and interact with your site. Once you've engaged their participation, they will start to identify with your site more. Now, if you get them to become a regular visitor who comments on your blog or has tried out some of your products, they start to feel like this is their home. They start to take pride in being part of your site, and it can give them feelings like pride of ownership. The technique. Direct sales, like mail marketing, use something called an involvement device to get people involved over a long distance. That is something that they can touch and feel and that asks for some participation on their part. The one involvement device that comes to mind is some of the advertisements that ask you to peel a sticker from a particular part of the advertisement and place it somewhere else to signal your acceptance of the offer. It seems very simplistic that having someone place a sticker or add a business card or drop something into a slot could ever increase sales, but it does. Once a person becomes involved in the sales process, they are more apt to pay attention and buy. Any device that engages the reader brings them into the buying process and reduces their resistance to the offer. You don't just want to use any involvement device, you typically want to use something that ties into what you are selling. That's why Facebook applications are so popular, because they are a great involvement device that typically tie into the product or company and provide a way for people to associate their participation with some company or product. Then, if there is a link available back to the website, you are already primed to consider this a part of your virtual heritage. Another type of involvement device is like the advertisements that ask you to draw a picture to see if you qualify for drawing lessons. You find that you get so involved in getting the picture done right that you can hardly wait to mail it off and receive an offer for classes in the mail. Not only did those advertisers correctly identify people who might have an interest in buying art classes, but they also got them so involved they probably waited by the mailbox to see if they were accepted for this offer. That's very clever marketing. The key there is that the involvement device used was directly related to the product or services being sold. You can still use an involvement device that merely gets a person to participate, and online, that would be like getting a comment on a blog. A person has taken some action that has gotten them involved in your community. But did it make a sale? Not really. It might later, but not right away. So the best involvement devices are those that are tied directly to the product or service you are trying to market. The secret. Have you ever seen a baby find a new toy and become completely fascinated by it? It captures their attention, and all their old toys get ignored while they explore this new object. They may put it in their mouths, stare at it intently, shake it, or even smash it on the floor. They get highly involved in just touching it and trying to get as much experience as they can out of it. Well, adults still have that fascination with new toys. And that's part of the psychology of offering them something new that brings up that childish wonder of exploration. The other thing is that people love to be challenged and to beat something and identify themselves as a winner. Some of the puzzles, games, and involvement devices can include different levels that differentiate your ability from other people and give you a sense of pride that you made it to a certain level. Another way to involve people is to make it fun. Who doesn't want to include a little entertainment in their day? In fact, entertainment is one of the most sought-after things in our Western culture. If you happen to provide a fun involvement device that also happens to lead them to your product, all the better, right? They get to have some fun, and you end up with a sale, so in a sense, it's a win-win. Also, people tend to distrust a product that they can't see, touch, or feel. So in direct retail sales, the involvement device is typically the ability to try on a dress before buying, kick the tires of a new car or test drive it, or even get a free makeover at a makeup department store booth. They want the experience of possessing the item before they actually purchase it. These types of retail actions are simple ways to involve a person by just allowing them to touch and experience the product firsthand. This becomes a little harder in the virtual world of online sales because your product is not there to have it hold, but you can still produce some very good involvement devices and even virtual visualize and experience ads that can lead to bigger sales. How to make it work. Since we are basically concerned with turning traffic from your website into customers, we want to really understand how to create an involvement device online. It's really not that hard once you understand the concept. What you want to do is put yourself in the customer's shoes and see how you can get them engaged in at least visualizing themselves using your product or service. In the first strategy, you can simply provide a novel and fun gimmick to your site to get them involved. If you are a dating site, for instance, you might want to add a personality test to your website. Once they complete that, you can sell the service by saying, "Find compatible people who match your personality on our site." It not only gets them involved right away, but it appeals to ego identity, a large reason people join community sites. Social networking is great for forming groups of people who can interact with each other. In a sense, the people on your site become the involvement device that attracts more people. If you are trying to sell memberships, you want to highlight who is already on your site and why it is worth it for you to join so you can network with them too. If you really think about it, your entire website can be an involvement device. It has buttons people can push, drop-down menus they can fiddle with, and maybe videos they can watch. So you can do the same thing when you are selling a particular product. Just be careful that you don't get too fancy. Some people try to involve their visitors by adding incredible technologies that look great on newer PCs, but can't be opened on older models. You don't want to lose a customer because the involvement device is too complicated or it crashes their system. You want something simple, and you want it to appeal to the psychology more than the technology. When you are marketing people offline, you can also provide involvement devices that lead back to your products online. There are now business cards that are mini CD-ROMs that can be loaded into a computer and lead people straight to your website. Just the fascination of seeing something so small, so cute, and so novel will get people to put it in their machine to see what it does. Once they are on your site, you can involve them further with other involvement devices. But what if you're selling engagement rings online? How could you possibly create an involvement device for that? Won't someone want to try the ring on first before buying? Here is where you see the magic of the internet really shine. You can hire a programmer to build a database of your inventory and an applet that allows them to build a ring online in the virtual world. Thus, they not only get the fun of creating something online, but they get to try out the ring too in their imagination. It's the closest thing to actually being in a retail store where they can hold the ring in their hands. It may take a bit more programming and sophistication, but if your market demands a virtual tryout, there are ways to do this, as many online diamond marketers have proven. Your call to action can also include an involvement device or a fun game by allowing them some discount for performing a specific function on your site and thus getting access to a coupon code. Once they have that coupon code, wouldn't they want to use it to get the discount? So you lead the potential buyer from their fun game straight back to your product or service. Finally, even emails or sales copy can get the reader involved, if you happen to use the person's name in them and help them to imagine what it's like to experience your product. If you have a product that you can personalize, that also will give a person a feeling of pride of ownership before they've gotten the product in their hands. As can be seen, there are a great many ways to use this strategy online to help promote participation and involvement with your website and products. This strategy works best at the very beginning of your sales funnel or even before. You should have at least a few involvement devices on your website to help you create membership if you are a social networking site. Otherwise, people lose interest in just writing posts and move on. If you have a fun game or add a video from YouTube, when they first land on your page, your website appears more interactive and alive. Have you ever seen the sign on the side of the road as you're waiting in a traffic jam that says, "You could live here"? That is a simple device that helps you imagine how much time you could save living there, how much nicer your life would be, and how you could own a condo there if you just took the initiative to walk in the door. That's a very powerful involvement device, and it wasn't even in a sales brochure. You might not have even been thinking of buying a condo up until then. So that explains that the timing on this strategy is sometimes even before the person has realized that your company even exists or what your products are. You can wait for them to somehow stumble upon your site, but why not go out to places where people in your target demographic are and just put a link to your fun, experiential involvement device there? You don't have to sell the product. You don't have to tell them at the end they'll be solicited to buy a product. Once they choose to try this out, they will be hooked and you will have created a sales opportunity where none existed. Once you have the person involved in the product, you can continue to keep them involved by upgrading the experience. This will create a habit, reducing their resistance to future purchases too. So if you are using a game, make sure you have various levels. Keep the strategy going continuously and vary it every now and then to keep people involved in buying.